so today I just thought I'd do a quick little video on different thread counts and what they do to your embroidery, what effect they sort of give. This is just going to give you a little overview. Ultimately, it's just to help you understand what the different strand counts, the effects that they can give to your embroidery. So to just talk you through these, I've just created this simple piece on a hoop. On here I've just done a back stitch with all of the different strand counts. I've done a little heart with a satin stitch and an outline, and then I've done some French knots, and at the bottom here I've just done 2 hearts where I'm going to talk you through different strand separation methods. Don't forget, if you're liking these videos, please hit that thumbs up and give this a like and subscribe. Okay, so standard embroidery floss comes like this, and in this is 6 strands. So the colour I've used for my embroidery, I've already put on my little card here. If you look at the end, you just pull it slightly, play with it a little bit, and they separate. You can see the 6 strands. To separate your strands out, you just pull them apart, and then I hold them in separate fingers, and then I just use my other hand to pinch the thread and this finger to just run down to separate as we go along. Then I release and move along and just continue to the end, and there we go. We've got 2 sets of 3 strands of cotton. You don't get any knots in it that way either. So quickly just talking you through the different thread counts. This is the 1 strand in a back stitch. As you can see, this gives you a really fine back stitch. Now this is great for outlines and borders and fine details. If you're going to use it for satin stitch, it's going to take you quite a while. It does give you a really nice dainty effect on your embroidery, but it does take quite a bit of time to do. For example, this heart here, I had to do about 20 stitches to fill this all the way across, whereas this on the 6 strands, I think it was about 11. So, and this is a bigger heart just because I freehand drew them all on and didn't get them all the same. So from that, you can just probably work out what the time difference is, how it's going to take you much longer to stitch with 1 strand. But do you know what? If you want to create a really fine, elegant detail, then stick with your 1 strand and you will achieve that. For French knots, this is a French knot with 1 strand. You can barely see it. I wouldn't use 1 strand for a French knot. Onto the 2 strands. So this is more visible, as you can see on the back stitch. Quite like this. It is quite a popular thread count for embroidery to use because it does fill quite neatly. It doesn't take as long as the 1 strand to fill something, but it still gives a nice dainty feel to your embroidery, and you can use it for back stitch. It's more visible back stitching than the 1. You can see that this is back stitched around, but it's not very visible on the 1 strand. But on the 2 strands, you can actually see the back stitch and frames your satin stitch a bit more. And then we have a French knot. You can see this French knot more than that, and it would work fine. But I personally think that you need a higher thread count. I wouldn't do a French knot with anything less than a 3, but if you're working on smaller details, then this would work just fine. I should also point out that the 2 strand is quite popular with cross stitch because this gives you a nice neat cross stitch on your finer counts of Ada. Onto 3 strands, as you can see, this gives you a bit more of a defined back stitch, and you can see it a bit more on your satin stitch. 3 is my preferred amount for embroidery, but 2 and 3 are the most popular. I wouldn't use 3 to outline because I feel that that gives a bit of a chunky outline to it. I would probably use the 3 to fill and then the 2 strands to outline. I think that's the happy medium for me. 3 strands is great for a French knot. You can see this a lot more, and this is what I would use. 4 strands you're starting to pick up a bit more texture here when you use this. As you can see, it is more prominent on your embroidery. You can use this, that's absolutely fine, to satin stitch. Again, I wouldn't use it to outline, but you can, because I just feel it's a bit too chunky for my liking. But the 4-stranded French knot, I quite like this and would happily go with that. Onto the 5 strands back stitch. I don't think anyone really uses 5 strands because, to be honest with you, there isn't that much difference between the 5 and the 6. There's no point going through the effort of separating out your strands, I don't really think, for the 5. If you're going to use that, you might as well just use 6 and be done with it. You can use this for satin stitch. It's starting to look a bit clunky for me, and I certainly wouldn't use it for back stitching because I don't really like the finish it gives. It doesn't look that polished. It's all a bit too chunky and messy for me. But for a French knot, I'm not against that. That's quite a nice French knot that you get from there, and it's more prominent and it sticks out nicely. So onto the 6 strands. 6 strands is great if you want to give a nice chunky texture to your work. As you can see, you can use it for the satin stitch. Again, I wouldn't use it for the outline. It's personally, I think it's too bulky, but it is great for statement pieces, larger pieces of embroidery that you are doing. You could use the 6 strands for. And the French knot, I do like the 6 strand French knot. On the face of it, it doesn't look that much different to the 5. If you turn it to the side, you can just see it's slightly more raised than the others. You can just see them all there. I would be happy doing a 6-stranded French knot. Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through what I've done at the bottom here. So this one, I've just used the cotton as we separated earlier, just by twisting. So this part of the 3 strands is still twisted. And this is how I've filled this, and I would just do this in the normal way with a knot at the end. And just satin stitch my way round the heart. These sit quite nicely next to each other, and they fill in a decent amount of time. So you can absolutely just use your floss like that. Okay, so I finished this heart with the 3 strands that were still twisted just as I pulled them out earlier. So this heart is also done with 3 strands, but what I do this time is, so this is the other 3 strands that we pulled out earlier, and these are still twisted. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate all of these strands. So take out the twist. So that's 1. 2. And 3. So there we go. We've got 3 single strands of cotton now. All I do this time is I'm just going to gather these all up. Next to each other. Thread them on my needle. I still tie the knot at the end. So everything is the same as the other 3 strands, other than the fact that I've just separated every strand individually. And I'm going to continue with this heart. But what it does, what I find it does is it's a bit neater. It's a bit more like using 3 individual strands of cotton. You can leave a slightly larger gap in between because they're not all twisted together, so they lay flat. And I think it's just a neater finish. So it is going to depend on the piece that you're doing and if you feel that it's worth the extra time and effort, because obviously it is a bit of faff, but it does give a slightly neater finish, I think. So it'll be your judgment call, but I just wanted to show you another little technique that I do to give a slightly different finish to my work. There we go. So I've finished the two hearts. Hopefully you can see this, it's picking up on camera. There isn't a huge difference between the two, but I just find this is a much neater, more polished sort of finish to your embroidery. But you really need to judge whether the project that you're doing warrants the little bit of extra time and effort that goes into it. Generally, I'm quite happy to stick with my twisted strands, but if I'm doing something that I want a bit more of a polished feel to, I would separate out my strands and use this method. This one I just think gives you a bit more of the effect of just using the one strand of cotton, but actually you're cheating and using the three. So the only other thing I think I quickly need to mention is the fabric that you use. So the denser the weave on the fabric, the more strands that it can handle, basically. The finer the fabric, the looser the weave of strands is the better option. Your denser fabrics are like your Ada, which is a cross-stitch fabric, thick cotton and calico. Whereas your looser weaves are like linen, muslin, even weave sort of fabrics. If you're not sure what thread count to use on your fabric, you can just do a little test. All you've got to do is push your needle through the fabric. If it glides through nice and easily, you can go lighter on the strands. If you've got resistance on it when you're trying to pull it through, the fabric can handle more of the thread count. It's one of those things that you're just going to learn to pick up as you go along, and the more that you do. So I hope you've enjoyed this overview of thread tips. This is just from what I've learned over the years of doing embroidery. Just try these things and figure out what you find works for you and you're most comfortable with. Okay, so hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, I'd really appreciate it if you can give this a thumbs up and like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you check out my other videos because there's some different videos there for different stitches that you can try. There's also a couple of free patterns where you can have a go at the embroidery and put some of this into practice. Thank you.